Hi, everyone. Bienvenue. Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the 94th event of Disrupting Disruptions, the Feminist and Accessible Publishing, Communications, and Technologies Speaker and Workshop Series. This event is co-hosted by the Indigenous Futures Research Centre. I'm Dr. Alex Ketchum, and I'm a professor of feminist and social justice studies at McGill and the organizer of this series. The Feminist and Accessible Publishing, Communications, and Tech Speaker and Workshop Series seeks to bring together scholars, creators, and people in industry working at the intersections of digital humanities, computer science, feminist studies, disability studies, communication studies, LGBTQ studies, history, and critical race theory, and of course, art. I'm so excited to welcome you all. So Joelle is now going to introduce the Indigenous Futures Research Centre.
Yeah, hi everybody. So the Indigenous Futures Research Centre, or the IFRC, supports research that is led by and for Indigenous peoples and communities. We welcome all researchers, so Indigenous and non-Indigenous, who engage in research that prioritizes the co-generation of knowledge that is of direct use to Indigenous peoples and communities. You can find more at ifrc.ca or on Instagram at Indigenous Futures RC.
Awesome. Thank you, Joelle. So some notes on accessibility for tonight. As is the case with all of our hybrid and virtual events, we have CART captioning in English tonight provided by our captioner, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for being here. You can turn on your captions at the bottom of your screen below. So there should be an option under the More tab to turn on your captions. Tonight, we have a Q&A option available, so throughout the event, you may type your questions into the question and answer box. There will be some time during the second part of the event for Asinnajaq to answer them. We can't guarantee that every question will be answered, but we are so grateful for the discussion that you generate. We still have 2 more events coming up this semester. Our next event is a hybrid event. On March 15th, we are co-hosting a workshop with the Center for Oral History and Digital Storytelling of Concordia University on queer oral histories. Gabrielle Yaconetti and Liam Devitt will be speaking at that hybrid event. On May 7th, Dr. Ashley Hsu will talk about her new book, Against Techno-Ableism, at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That event is part of the AdaX HTML's festival. You can find our full schedule as well as video recordings of our past events at disruptingdisruptions.com. That's the redirect URL. www.disruptingdisruptions.com. The other URL is way too long to remember. You can also find our list of sponsors, including Shirk, Milieu, Rikef, of course, the IFRC, and more. As we welcome you into our homes and our offices through Zoom, and you welcome us into yours, let us be mindful of space and place. As many of you know, past series speakers Suzanne Kite, Jess McLean, Mel Hogan, and Sasha Lucioni have pointed to the physical and material impacts of the digital world. The topic of the environmental cost of digital technologies will also be addressed this semester in upcoming events. While many of the events this semester are virtual or hybrid, everything that we do is tied to the land and the space that we are on. We must always be mindful of the lands that the servers enabling our virtual events are on. Indigenous communities are disproportionately impacted by the mining practices used for the materials that are used to build our computers and digital infrastructure. Furthermore, as the series seeks to draw attention to power relations that have been invisibilized, it's important to acknowledge Canada's long colonial history and current political practices. So while this is a co-partnered event, the series is also affiliated with the Institute for Gender, Sexuality, and Feminist Studies of McGill University. McGill is located in Tiohtià, Montreal, on Nunavik territory. Furthermore, the ongoing organizing efforts by Indigenous communities, water protectors, and people involved in land-back movements make clear the ever-present and ongoing colonial violence in Canada. Interwoven with this history of colonization is one of enslavement and racism. This university's namesake, James McGill, enslaved Black and Indigenous peoples. It was in part from the money he acquired through these violent acts that McGill University was founded. These histories are here with us in this space and inform the conversations we have today. I encourage you to learn more about the lands that you are on. nativeland.ca is a fantastic resource for beginning. Joelle is now going to do an introduction of our fantastic speaker for tonight's event.
Asinnajaq is from Inukjuak, Nunavik, and lives in Tiohtià in Montreal. Her work includes photography, filmmaking, writing, and curating. She co-created Tillitarniit, a 3-day festival celebrating Inuit art and artists. Asinnajaq wrote and directed 3000 from 2017. It's a short sci-fi documentary. They co-curated Isuma's show in the Canadian pavilion of the 58th Venice Biennale. In 2020, Asinnajaq was longlisted for the Sobey Art Award. She also co-curated the inaugural exhibition INUA at Qaumajuq. Asinnajaq programmed the Flaherty New York 2022 fall program, Let's All Be Lichen. In their work, Asinnajaq is interested in sharing tools for navigating life's journey. Please join me in welcoming Asinnajaq.
Thank you. Thanks so much for inviting me here today, and thanks for everyone who is here with us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and then my works. Yes. So my name's Asinnajaq, and I belong to my family, the Witaaltuk, Upatitsiak, Rowan, Haynes, and so many other names that we go by. My parents are Carol Rowan and Joby Witaaluk, and I grew up near the St. Lawrence River in the suburbs of Montreal. And Qaumajuq is the place that's just south of Inukjuak, Nunavik, where my family maintains a campsite where it's so beloved, and such special events like the birth of my father happened in this place. This picture that accompanies this slide is of a rock that's just on the other side of a little bay from where my father was born, Qaumajuq. And I was thinking about, what do I belong to? And I think I also belong to art. I thought it and it felt right. So now I'm going to be saying it from now on because it gives me so much joy and life, and it's a space that I inhabit daily. So I must belong to it, I think. Then before we start, I also wanted to tell you all that making slideshows is one of my love languages. This is an example of a slideshow that I made for my mom to explore some really simple base elements so that she could think of how to decorate her house based on it. So anyways, you're going to experience a slideshow, which is one of my love languages. So I think to introduce myself and my art practice, I really want to start with the kind of process of making the work. What's really important to me are the grounding and core values that motivate the work and sit at the center of it, and are the ideas and heart that always help me answer the questions of how to make the work and if it's successful or not. And these values also help me choose what to spend my time on in life. And I think that they're a really important place for me to start. Then I also try my best to know my voice, understand what my specific experience in life situates me uniquely to make work about and speak about ideas and stories. So that's one of the other things that's really important to me when starting to think of an idea is am I the person to do this, or how can I approach this that makes it even more uniquely from my perspective? Because I think doing that really helps me make work that 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 means I'm contributing exactly what I can. I do research in many different ways, including speaking with my family, including looking through papers and reading research, as well reading other people's research, as well as being inspired by the environment and other artists. An important part of the research is listening, and listening in so many different ways. I don't know. I won't go too far into it right now. Then also, most of the work that I do involves really big teams, or not huge, but it requires teams. And picking who you work with when you do really team-based work is really important, to be able to trust and build around these core values so that everyone can be contributing their best together. And that requires good communication. And one of the other things that's really important to me is that my work is contributing both to my well-being and ideas, as well as to my community, and as well as to the medium. So I really like trying to make things, like with film, for example. I really love film and have studied film history. So for me, when I'm making films, one of the things that really gives me a lot of joy when making them is thinking about how this work can contribute to the fabric of this medium itself. So that way, for me, what that means is that I'm bringing something that feels new. Doesn't have to be a huge thing, but a little something that's contributing to. So just going back to where my all work starts from, I'm just sharing some of my core values with you. And there's a lot of values that guide me, and also some values just appear in the work, that aren't necessarily at the most, not necessarily values that I think about a lot, but that are important. So for me, family is really important. Accountability is something that's important. And learning and curiosity are really important to me. I understand my culture to be a culture that is based around learning, and I really want to make things that have the possibility to spark something that allows people to see the world in a new way, or understand something that they hadn't, or sometimes you just hear someone or read someone say a couple words together and you're like, yes, I know I've thought it and felt it, but I never had the words, and now I have a new way of accessing that knowledge. So that's the kind of thing I want to make. So I'm not going to talk about all of my art practice today, because there's a lot of things that I do that are artistic, but I'm going to focus on one simple strand, and we're just going to follow it and see where it goes. So we're going to start with this element, photography. Photography is something that I've been practicing for a really long time. My father, Sobey Art Award, is also a photographer, and when I was a teenager, we used to go drive out of the city somewhere and with our cameras and just spend the day taking pictures. And I learned a lot from looking at his photos and what he thought was interesting, and started becoming interested in my own things. One thing I'm really interested in is the textures of our landscape. So I love flora and fauna, especially flora, and I love the textures that are made on our land. So I often will look at those when I'm taking photographs. This photograph, most of my photographs, I can tell you when and where and why I took them. This one is in Inukjuak, next to just in front of where my grandma lived, and I would wait with my niece when she was waiting for the bus, and I would just go outside with her. And after she got on the bus, I just would take some pictures. So this is between two family homes. Yep. The other thing that I really love is lichen and also geology. And luckily, my homelands are filled with such beautiful lichen and geology. So here we see a very iron-filled rock. And I really love this photo. And this photo is taken also with my family when we went for a picnic, and we went in the boat for a picnic, which that day when I was invited for a picnic, what it meant was that we were going to go check my uncle's nets and go have a fire and cook some hot dogs, and then eat a full fish on the rocks. And also what we can see in this picture are mussels and urchins. And I think it was the first time I ate urchins after this, and I love them. They're so yummy. And I also really love this photo. And this photo, I was invited into an exhibition at the in Iceland, in an exhibition that was called The Wildflower, that was curated by Penelope Smart and Becky Forsyth. And they asked me if I would want to make a work on fabric. And at first I was really against it, but I thought about it and I thought about what kind of image I would put on fabric. And then when I thought about this picture I had taken, it made sense to me and I tried it out. And here's the kind of thread that we're following, because I really believe in kind of following people's ideas. And I have my ideas and people have their ideas. And sometimes those things can join up together. So here, this wasn't my idea, but I really loved it. And loved the way that somehow printing it, of course, in the original photograph, it's this isn't the exact photograph, but it's from the series of those, and it's really beautiful and you can see the light in a different way. But when it's printed on the fabric, I learned that it brings some of the quality of real life when you feel the surface of the water on top of it. And I thought it was really beautiful. And after that exhibition, I was invited by Shell to show it in Toronto in their garage gallery space. And I added some scores, which are a method of engaging with art that I've loved since I learned about them and have written them. And I found out that in this space I could unite these scores with the artwork, which was so fun. And then I really wanted to keep exploring how to use the fabric photographs in ways that would make sense. And I have tried some and they have failed, and I won't show it, but it's definitely works in very specific ways. Then I also love making those scores and turning them into actions and making videos with them. So this one's called Holding Peace. And I made this while on residency in Sápmi in Asinnajaq, where my friend and fellow artist Sunamaret lives. And this water is the Asinnajaq, who was my collaborator for this artwork. And the idea here is that I'm being pushed by the water, but I can find holding stones, and I like interpreting these gestures really on multi-levels. And I think in this one, for me, what I think about is about how we hold on to culture and knowledge, and also time, I think. So you can think about so many different things. But yes, this is Holding Peace. So, okay. Then we have River Peace, which is a different but similar kind of video. And I was commissioned to make this by Inukjuak, the Nunavik Art Secretariat. And I made this in Aotearoa in Maori land. And this river is called Arikupare. And wait a second. Okay. Oh, I have to share it again because I got all discombobulated. Okay. There we go. So that's this video. And then I got invited to the plugin to have an exhibition there, the plugin ICA in Winnipeg. And I had an idea that I could bring in this fabric and this video and make something even more. So we managed to turn that photo collage into this, which is with a floating LED screen that comes in different cubes. And I was just so amazed that we were able to do it. So we brought the video and the fabric and the vinyl on the floor all together, which was, yeah, it's so exciting. And I really want to show this again. Then this idea with the fabric got even more wild, and I found another way that I could use it without water this time. So here I am working with Tiffany Shaw, and she's an amazing architect, and I'm so lucky to collaborate with her on this piece that was for the Canadian Centre for Architecture and the exhibition called Towards Home, curated by Takulik Partridge, Jocelyn Pyranen, Yor Nango, and Rafiko Ruiz. This took us so long to get into the right format. I tried some different things making a structure, and then finally we settled on this dome structure that is inspired by Buckminster Fuller's geodesic domes, but it's not like them because this unique structure I really felt couldn't be the same, and that I really wanted it to feel natural. And when everything was too symmetrical, it didn't feel right to me with this piece. And so the most complicated thing I think about this piece called Nuna is actually the math that it took to make these shapes all work. And yeah, I'm so pleased with it. So that's a surprising way sometimes about how things work. Then with that Nuna structure, I made this sculpture, which I felt was my first thing that really felt sculptural to me. So I enlisted support from Cousine Van Hovelen, and Tiffany Shaw also helped me make sure I was doing it right. And Ludwig Boney actually constructed it for me. So here you can see after having a meeting with them, I make this mock-up of what it should look like, and this is the final result. So the kulik is our lamp that we use, and I just felt that it would be amazing to make one with a neon light. And this one is kind of inspired by the kulik and then mixed with like a fire pit. Then the other cool thing that happened with this work, Nuna and Hulik, that was commissioned for this exhibition Towards Home, was that one part of the component that they had funding for was a digital component. And I was really excited to make something. So this is just a draft, okay? This isn't what it actually looked like, but I want to give you a feeling of it because it's really hard to show you what it actually looks like when you're really experiencing it. But so imagine that's the gallery space that already exists, and then what's moving is what you would see when you put on the HoloLens, which is what this Sila XR was made for the HoloLens. So I was thinking about how, first of all, this is Geronimo Inutik's installation that this experience, Sila XR, is attached to in the first iteration. And I was thinking, I don't want to make the room too busy, but what could I do that would complement it? And Geronimo's installation to me was really about Iqaluit and about the feeling of being there. And the one thing that I could see that I could really add to make it feel like Iqaluit was to add something about the atmosphere and some environmental elements like the clouds, the water, and here we have the raven, which are iconic for their tenacity, I think, and their character. So this, I worked with Nick Studio based in Montreal to make this. And then when this exhibition moved to the University of Toronto Daniels Gallery, we got to do another version of it. And now we attached it to the Nuna and Kulik installation. So it has a bit of a different feeling. So this is all made in different I don't know what systems. So one of them it was made in was Unity. So if you tried this experience, seeing the XR, it wouldn't really look like this because you would be wearing glasses, and the field of vision is pretty low in them, so you only see that you would only see that in a limited frame. So that's one of the reasons it's actually really cool to see this trial capture. In this, we went for not making the ravens look realistic because I kind of like when using technology, you know, not trying to hide that that's what's happening, and it also makes it really fun. Oh. Not quite done presenting yet. Hey. And then, yeah, the last artwork that I was just going to share about was this film 3000, which anyone can see if you haven't seen it yet. And this was kind of the first artwork I made out of university, probably. And I used the archives at the NFB and went through a timeline of honestly of colonization and our cultural, I don't know, fabric through the archives. So there's about 100 years of archives squished into 10 minutes. And yeah, this is beautiful. So we can see something about film history in here because it goes through some of the early images through many different devices that are used to capture images. And even one of the really cool things that I really love about it is that in the animation here, in the animation, we have the line drawing, like 2D animation, and also we have computer generated environment, which was made by Patrick Defestin, and the drawings were made by Jonathan Ng. And I think it's such a cool, I don't know, flattening of time almost to have those two mediums together in the animation. Yeah. In this film, what I really loved working on was the sound. The sound is really beautiful and special to me. And I don't know what else to say right now, so I'm just gonna stop here.
Thank you so much for that wonderful artist talk and presentation. I want to welcome everyone who's in attendance to please write your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll read your questions aloud as time allows. So we have a good chunk of time. I know Joelle had a few questions that you want to start with, Joelle? Since none have come in the Q&A box yet.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was really fascinated by the really broad like range of mediums you're using in your practice, and I was just curious as to like how are you deciding on like which medium is best suited for any like artistic idea you're having? How do you go about deciding what's the best suited medium for an idea?
One of the things that I try to do is not limit myself too much with mediums and be able to work in as many as needed, I guess. And I really try to listen to the idea and how it feels it should be expressed. So of course, ideas that I have mostly want to be expressed in mediums that I'm used to and feel really comfortable in. But I really want the idea to be able to dictate the form as much as possible. So I try to leave that as open as possible in my mind.
Great, thank you.
I want to encourage people to keep writing in questions while we're waiting other audience questions. Oh, one is popping in right now. I'll just ask the one question about, I'll read Vanessa's question aloud, which is, can you share about the experience of working with the archival material? And you can talk about how or if that work aligned with your values from the first slide.
Absolutely. So working with the archives was a really humbling experience for me. I went in, my original idea for the film was really about seeing a single figure emerge from the land and follow the single figure kind of really simply from, let's say, kayaking, walking, and then into a town, and using that just as a way of showing how Inuit live today. And it was really, really like some of the first instincts for me about the film and its inspiration were really about being on Tumblr and saying that I'm Inuk and people like literally asking me how I could be on the computer from my igloo and things like that. So some of the original, inspiration and instincts to make it were to like literally show. It's like just show how from A to B. But as I got to look through the archives and become more familiar with them, I learned that one, it's for me, I can't like go in and extract the simple thing. It's really, once I started working with the archives, they became the subject who I had to listen to. and had to honestly serve them rather than the simple story idea that I had. So I spent an entire summer going through them once, trying to extract from them, and then did not have what I needed. So I had to go through them again with a completely different mindset of listening to them and seeing what they had to offer and wanted to say. And so that's like the core of my lessons from learning with, my lessons learned from working with them. And I think definitely since I was working on the film to now, my understanding of archives is constantly shifting, and my comfort of taking images out of their original contexts is really something that is like probably morally challenging to me. But I do feel so happy with the film and what I did with those images. There was a second part to the question. How does it align with the values that I spoke about? Let's see. Yeah. Well, I think that what the film ended up being about to me is a document primarily for Inuit so that we can see and understand how we got to where we are, because there are some people that, some fellow Inuit that I know that sometimes forget that like the situation we're in with really precarious situations with mental health, housing, food, safety, security, these really precarious situations and trauma that so many people are moving through is not an inherent part of us and is happening for a reason. So in the end, as I was making this film, what it really became about was a place that we can see to understand how things have been become this way, I guess, and in not too much of an aggressive way, but in more of a gentle way, but we're documenting it. And also, while doing that, I always want to leave space for hope. So, and that there is, and that we can create worlds that we want, and that this world is a created world, and we can create worlds. So, I always want to, especially if talking about something so difficult, to remind ourselves that this is a created world, and we can create a new world. So that's definitely how it aligns with my values of caring for my community, of making a site for learning and curiosity, and of being a steward for these images.
Thank you. Okay, you unmuted? Did you want to ask the next question from Hans?
Sure. That's great. Thank you so much. Merely makes me think about what you said about working with the technology, not trying to use it to hide things. I really love that. Okay, so from Hans. Hans says, thank you so much for this presentation, Asinnajaq. It's so cool to hear about your artistic practice. It seems your works, the works you presented operated in a very organic, but also collaborative way. Could you discuss your experiences with collaboration and how you navigate it?
Yes, I'll do my best to answer this question. I really love collaborating with people and love when people ask me to collaborate with them. I think that when working with people, it's really important for me, like to be safe in collaboration with people, you have to know your own boundaries. and work with people who know their boundaries and support each other with those. And when you can trust people and yourself to say where limit is, it makes collaboration a lot easier so that everyone can feel safe. I think that's the baseline. I really trust myself in collaborating because I have a kind of internal, I don't know, it's the like, I guess it's the gut, which tells me when artwork is good or bad or going in the right direction or not. So, for example, with the structure Nuna, Tiffany and I and a whole team talked for so many meetings and made like we were going in a completely different direction, which never felt right. And then all of a sudden, one day it was like I had the idea, and then we mocked it up, and then it was like, okay, it feels right inside of my body. So because I have my body speaking so loud to me, I know when things feel good or bad for me. So that way I can really trust myself. The other important thing I think with that and working with people is being able to, like in the Inuit IQ values, one of the values is called working together for a common cause or goal. And I think that's really important to situate yourself around the value of the thing that you're working on. So you're not just, I don't know, drawing a painting. You're drawing a painting for this reason, or painting a painting for this reason. And when you're kind of able to situate it around that, I find that it makes it easier. So then things that are about aesthetics or anything that's kind of outside of that thing that's really grounding you in the practice, like whatever's the common goal, anything that's kind of falling outside of that becomes less important and easier to figure out. I wanted to use pink, but pink is someone else's like bane of their existence. So we remember that the important thing is, I don't know, the sunshine, and we're like, oh, okay, this is actually about the sunshine. So then it helps you have a clear answer. I hope that makes sense for people. And then working with people, it's just that everyone has their own interests and things that they contribute, as well as yourself. And that's why it's so fun to work with people, because everyone sees the world slightly differently and brings their own thing to the table. And I find it so much more amazing. Some things I want to make and I want to make them, but some things it's like always going to be a million times better when everyone brings their own special, unique knowledge and piles it in the center together. So it's fun seeing what you can do when everyone brings themselves to the table.
Thank you so much. I have a question, but again, I want to encourage people, if you have questions, to write them in the Q&A box. So you were talking about how your understandings of archives have been shifting as you've worked on different projects. And you also shared some of your photography and other works with us that are really highlighting different aspects of the natural world. Can you talk about how you've brought this into some of your new work, such as the Daniel project that we were discussing a bit at the start before the event started, or other things that you're imagining working on, however you want to approach this question?
Yes, I think that I think, I don't know where to start either.
Maybe from the archive part.
Sure. With the archives, I think that, well, my understanding is shifting because it's so important that the people in the photographs and videos are respected. And I think that, like, while I was making my film 3000, which is, really short clips all put together, there was an artist who wasn't using the archives but was using YouTube and made a really racist film from them. And so it really showed me um, how like a similar idea can be used in a really hurtful and harmful way. And from that, it really um, changed, informed, or complicated my thinking of how to use images and our, I don't know, I don't think right is the proper word, but that's the only word I can think of right now, like our right to do that. And I think, of course, everything can be done in really good ways, and they can also be done in harmful ways. And I think that's really where most of my changing of thinking comes from. But I really love archives and learn so much from looking in them and seeing what they have to offer. There's images that I still think of often from that I saw while I was making my film. And I continue to look in archives for inspiration. Like right now, I'm looking at photos from the Library and Archives Canada and at the archive that we have at Avitaq, and using them to be inspired to make some photographs about Inuit aesthetics. And I'm really excited to be making those and to have these archives that are accessible to inspire the work.
Thank you. Joelle, again, for folks in attendance, if you have other questions, please write them in the Q&A box. Joelle, did you have another question?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that kind of struck me was when you were talking about the kind of fundamental elements that were guiding your practice. You were talking about humility and patience. So I was curious to know a bit more about how like this kind of comes through in the way you work. Yeah, the way you approach your artwork.
I think that you happen to pick one specifically. Patience is something that I'm really trying to make a better part of my daily life. So that's a lot of where I think about patience. But I think that it's also about, I have some projects that are like I made a whole film that I haven't shared yet because it's like I need to fix the sound and the this and that so that it can be perfect, and I have to use my patience so that it can be as good as it can be and put it out when it's ready. And I also think that humility is an important tool and thing to embody when it comes to working with people and being able to navigate knowing what's most important. And I think that's one of the ways that humility is really important. And I also think it's important in our everyday relationships as well.
Thank you.
But
Did anyone else in the audience have another question? Oh, yes, one popped up. Great. So,
you,
um, Colin, thanks you for the presentation and says you're Colin's favorite artist, and writes, your boundless love of land and connection to it are aspirational. I'm curious about your appreciation of stones and lichen and their relationship to stones. What do you love about these things?
thank you so much, Colin. It's so nice to hear. I appreciate it. I love lichen is such an amazing being. It's so incredible. One of the facts that blew my I spoke about Tumblr earlier. I used to have a account that was all about algae, and I like spent all of my time learning about algae, and then all of that research brought me to lichen, and then lichen blew my mind, and I just like love it. And another reason that I love it is because I was assisting my dad on one of his films that's called Tiohtià. Yeah. And one of the ideas that he had for it was about this horned lark looking down and seeing the orange lichen, and then the lichen turn into words. And it was like such an interesting and mind-blowing idea that he had, that it really stuck with me and furthered my love for lichen. But I didn't tell you the really cool fact about lichen yet, which was that it could the sunburst lichen has been sent into space on the side of the rocket, on the side of the rocket ship, and was able to survive the vacuum of space and then come back to Earth and like start living again, which was so cool. And that's one of the amazing things about it, is that it's patient. Lichen is so patient, and it also is like symbiosis, working together. Scientists didn't realize that it had that it had three things working together inside of it until recently. And even now, not all of the lichen scientists agree that there's actually three organisms working together: the algae, the mycelium, and yeast. So it's so cool. And there's so many different kinds. Anyways, they look so beautiful on rocks, and they just bring joy. And then the stones also, they're so cool. This summer I was in my homelands with a geologist who was like we were walking on one of our rocks, and he was just like explaining all of the things that happened. And what's so cool about geology and rocks is that it's like there was all of this activity happening on Earth, and then they were like frozen, and you can still see and understand the things that were happening in those rocks. Like we can see hydrothermal. We can see on this rock that's near my hometown, you can see hydrothermal vents in their non-active frozen form as a rock. Like that's so cool. So yeah, rocks.
Thank you. I'm not sure how you want to answer this question, but it comes from Skawanati. Hi, Skawanati, who writes, how'd you get to be so smart? But it made as you wish, or maybe it's a compliment.
Thanks so much, Kamanadi. I think just by having a super nerdy family, it probably is half. If it is true, allegedly so smart.
Thank you everyone for your questions. I think we still technically have a little bit of time, but we'll maybe give a pause for another few seconds in case anyone is writing furiously typing away. If you just write typing or something like that, so we know to wait for you. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and it's wonderful to hear about your artistic practice. No one has written typing yet, so I think that's probably everyone's questions, but is there anything that we should be on the lookout for, some upcoming projects or releases or gallery showings, so we can go to them or tell our friends about them?
Thanks everyone who came, and thanks for the questions, and thanks for having me. As for what's upcoming, drawing blank, so I guess nothing. Or right now, one of my or two of my photographs are at the Snap auction, which is raising money for support for people with HIV and AIDS in Toronto.
Amazing. Well, thank you.
I can think of.
If you think of any others, we'll try to share it on our social media. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm really grateful for the IFRC for collaborating. It's so wonderful to work with. Thank you so much for partnering on this event. Thanks, Kit, for working on the tech. Thank you to our amazing speaker. Thanks, Sarah, for doing the captioning. And thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you at future events. And if you had any friends who wanted to come and missed for whatever reason, we'll have the recording up in a couple of days. So please let them know. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your evening.